There it is, episode 23 on the 23rd day of March.
Yeah.
2022.
We are almost done with first quarter.
Almost done, yeah.
What do you think of that?
Holy cow.
How's your year going so far?
Time's flying. The year's good, yeah. You?
Is it flying?
By the way, I'm Adam.
And I'm Steve.
There we go.
Yeah, welcome to Whiteboard Sessions.
Welcome.
23, man.
23, yeah. Year going good for you so far?
I'm pleased.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pleased so far with everything.
Yeah.
We're in the Midwest. We're in Minnesota, and there was a little taste of spring on Sunday.
There was, and now there was a little taste of winter.
Oh my gosh!
This morning and yesterday.
Yeah, the joke in Minnesota,
snow.
Probably a lot of states. If you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes and it'll change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 60 degrees or almost on Sunday, and now we got snow on the ground today.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So true.
Yep.
So you have the topic today. For those of you just joining us or you've never checked out one of the podcasts before, one of us has a topic, the other one doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
And then what you see is what you get. Authentic kind of banter back and forth, if you will. See how our minds work. See, kind of what we bring to the table as far as conversation. And,
yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
So we've talked about going through stuff in life on these podcasts and how they can be very instructive, and so there's a common phrase, a common condition that people have, when they go through difficult times, and it's called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Yes.
PTSD.
Yep.
I'm wondering if you've heard of post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth, I have not.
Yeah.
Is this like a medical term? I assume this is new. I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Well, it's you've never heard of it, but I'm guessing that so here's the deal.
Yeah. Okay.
What are we in March? It's coming up on 12 years since Angie died, and which was the kids were young, as many people know, and the the trauma, the emotional trauma, losing a mother, losing a wife, a daughter, a sister. All of that other stuff. Legitimately, sincerely, very, very, very traumatic. And
absolutely.
And
I
so,
can't imagine.
As I sit here almost 12 years out, I am legitimately, and I hope that this is taken the way, grateful.
Yeah.
The post-traumatic growth that has happened in our collective lives, because we have had to persevere, we've had to make the adjustments, we've had to, dig deep. The Michael Jordan, there's been lots of wood on the fire for this stuff. And I just thought, what if we talk about that a little bit, that things can get tough, and we talk a little bit about, being resilient and so on and so forth. But PTSD is a very common phrase, and frankly, I think some people overestimate what they're going through and say that they
loosely throw that word around these days.
Yeah. So what do you think about post-traumatic growth?
Yeah, from what this is new. This is the first time I'm hearing about it, but I think. It's interesting. It's piqued my interest. It's an intriguing concept. I want to learn more about it. I think it's, from what you were saying, kind of some of the things I can think about. You absolutely have to go through growth and change when something traumatic happens to you.
Yeah.
I think, I guess I don't even know. Hit me with some examples. If people doubt, this is legitimately, so we're just getting into this right now. Yeah.
You're rehabbing
my knee.
Your knee right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Then, and I don't know if that rises to the level, Adam, of trauma.
I've never had a major injury before. For those of you who don't know me, I've been a competitive runner since high school, and I've never had a major injury. As if you're a runner, the shin splints, or some runners have plantar issues or maybe tight IT band, stuff like that. Yeah. But I tore my patella tendon the other day.
Yeah.
And the other day, maybe this is where the growth comes in. It's like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, right.
No, it was about a year ago.
Yeah.
And so I've the thought of not being able to run anymore or run competitively anymore, the thought of having to battle this for longer than I care to is tough on me. It really is. I try not to allude to it, because in my mind, I'm like, well, that's a very basic thing, especially after the example you just gave. I'm like, this is so minor in my life or anybody else's life to go through a little injury. But, running means a lot to me, and that's part of my passion. It's also part of my de-stressing. And so when something like that kind of gets taken away from you, no matter how hard you work at it, it's kind of tough. So.
And I want to make sure that I get where you're coming from on the, oh, hey, it's just this knee thing and it's nothing like trauma, or challenge or whatever is, I guess it's subjective, right? There's not an objective way to say, well, that's worse than whatever. And so when we go through tough things, whether it's physical or emotional or financial, or in relationships like that, I mean, we all feel bad. We all feel pain. We feel loss. In some cases, there's grief and some of those things. And so without getting into, the depth or the intensity or the severity of that stuff, I do think that there is a general theme in the world that when bad things happen, it's like, shit, I'm so sorry. Rather than, you know what? This is going to be so good. Yeah. That when you get on the backside of this, not only are you going to be okay with it, you might even be grateful. Yeah. You might even feel awesome that you had the opportunity to experience the loss, the challenge, the struggle, the grief. And so I just think that post-traumatic growth is something that if people think about that, no matter where they are, I mean, we're coming out of COVID, and I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff still going on.
And a lot of people who lost a lot of loved ones during that, and relationships that were maybe, stressed. To put it very minimally. I think that's a great point. I think from, just our little talk here, I think post-traumatic growth can be an amazing thing. I think it can be very effective if you're able to reflect on that and able to see that for what it is and learn from those experiences and really, sit with, we've talked about feelings and communication and relationship a lot on this channel, but to sit with those feelings and to allow yourself the grace and the space and capacity to feel those feelings and go through the stages of grief and things like that. I think that can be a very powerful thing. I mean, as we're talking, I'm going back through, the last bunch of years of things that maybe, my wife and I, especially like with our dogs or things like that we've, encountered in different kind of stressful times that we've had to grow from and grow through. Yeah. And whether it be, like a physical, emotional, financial, whatever the stress may have come from or the trauma may have been derived from, I think there's a lot to take out of that. And part of that comes with the type of person you are too. Are you able to look back on those things and learn and grow from them?
Well, and this is where I think at this point in my life, sometimes I come off a little hardcore to people because I don't think it's as much as, the type of person you are, unless you mean the type of person you are is the choices that you make. Yeah. And that's where I think that, bad, really, really bad things can happen to you. Mm-hmm. And you can feel like, oh, I've got this post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah. There's something wrong with me now. Yeah. And make no mistake, there are legitimately some horrific things that people go through that are legitimately trauma that's never, ever, ever, ever going to go away.
Yeah, you just have to learn to live.
And I want to make sure that that's on the record, that there is some really, really bad stuff that happens that change. I mean, there's some stuff about Angie's death that changed me forever, and there will be some trauma there. But at the same time, that post-traumatic growth that happens, if you don't go through that horrific stuff sometimes, maybe horrific isn't the right word, but some challenging things, you appreciate the good things, the healthy things. Absolutely. I think about, the loss of some relationships that I've had, personal, professional, familial, relationships that just, I wish they were where they were, but the fact that they're where they are right now, how much I appreciate the healthy relationships. And I think that's part of that post-traumatic growth. Yep.
It's like, we talked about this before, but the no days for granted on some things, you know what I mean? It makes you appreciate the current, the in the moment, makes you be more mindful of what you're doing and who you're doing it with. Yes. Absolutely. And that's exactly what I meant by what type of person you are, right? Because you could be hit with something very negative or very stressful or very traumatic, and you could just lay it down and say, dang, another bad thing happened to me, or whatever it is. And again, not making light of PTSD, because like you said, there are some legitimate, very traumatic, horrific things that happen. And those aren't the type of people I'm talking about. But people that, I'm, like we've talked about before, I'm a big believer in law of attraction and, karma and the universe, the power of the universe and everything. And so I think you get what you put out as well. So if you're somebody who can kind of, handle that stress or those negative times or that the bad things that might happen and learn from them, grow from them, and just not take it sitting down and make the necessary steps and forward progress that you need. I think you can learn a lot from that and come out the other side a better person.
For sure.
Instead of just saying, oh, boo me, look at me. And
Right. Well, and I think some people, for most of my life, I think I was one of those that, the conversation in my head was one where, I did feel bad for myself a lot. And in some cases, there were some legitimate reasons to feel bad. I bumped into this guy down in Houston, Texas, Mike Jones. He's got an organization called Discover Leadership, and he talks about this universal conspiracy for your success.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, hearing that for the first time and thinking, okay, that's a completely different mindset to walk around thinking there is a universal conspiracy for my success, where I've been walking around thinking, you know what? Yep, that if there's a bad thing that's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. Yep, I deserve that, kind of thing. And that choice, that choice to think, okay, the bad thing's not a bad thing unless I think about it and call it and feel like it's a bad thing, versus, you know what? That's gonna make me a lot better, stronger, and so on and so forth. So
learn from it, grow from it.
Yeah, for sure. So as we wrap up COVID and head for the next, global issue,
exactly.
Whatever it's going to be, I think there's an opportunity for us to go into that and think, okay, what am I learning as these challenging events happen and these difficult circumstances continue to persist?
Yep. I think that's a great point and kind of a good last, bringing it all together towards the end of this episode here. And, you might be sitting back and saying, well, this isn't very businessy, right? And not all our podcasts are exactly business oriented or exactly like, here's how you do this, that, and the other thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're a business person, you're an owner, leader, or just, somebody working in a business, and there's ways that you can relate a lot of this stuff to what you're going through. And just like how I've alluded to on this channel before, I went through I had a job that I left, and there's still, some lingering, and not as much anymore, but
sensation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like
sure.
People go through that all the time. You leave a job or you have a really bad experience at a business or a relationship at a business, or things like we've talked about on this podcast before, toxic leaders, toxic cultures, things like that. So it can happen in business, but part of kind of our MO with business is that, at the heart of every business is relationships, and it's not up for debate.
I think you raise a good issue, and if you're looking for a business nugget out of this, when things aren't going right, when there's mistakes, when there's problems, when somebody legitimately, makes a mistake, you can definitely play the blame game. Yeah. And the blame game, I like to call it, BS and BO, the stinky twins. Mm-hmm. BS being blaming self, BO being blaming others. Yeah. You can play that blame game, or in the midst of the bad things that are going on, the crisis, whatever, you can literally time everybody out and say, okay, everybody, yep, we're going to fix this stuff. We're going to get focused on the solution, which I think most people know that, you can focus on the problem or focus on the solution. One of them obviously gets you forward. One of them gets you, kind of stagnant, but you can ask them in the process, what are we learning? Yep. What are we learning about ourselves? What are we learning about this team? What are we learning about our environment and our product and our processes? What are we learning about the customer? So when we're in the midst of those bad things that might be causing us stress or trauma, if you want a business little tidbit, ask people, ask yourself, what am I learning? How are we getting better and smarter right now? We're not through it yet, but hopefully we're going to be. But how are we getting better at this moment? A lot of times, the answer is in the questions. Yep.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what a good leader does for a business. Yeah. They can be able to provide that space, say it just like how Steve said it, and be able to learn and grow in those tough times. So
and if you want some homework as we wrap this thing up, think about the tough times you've been through. Yeah. Think about some of the legitimate, financial, emotional, truly trauma that you've been through in your life, in your work life, in your family life, in your personal life, and relationships and things like that. And I'm not saying that it's not good or healthy to feel bad about it. There's going to be that
part of the process.
But what is the post-traumatic growth that maybe you didn't realize happened? And when you look at that, maybe rather than feeling bad and remorseful or maybe even shameful, maybe you start to feel grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. This has been another great episode 23
on the 23rd.
On the 23rd.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
See you guys next time.
See ya.